listening to the Questionnaire.
Say that again.
You're listening to the Questionnaires.
I've just started.
Right here, for your ears, for your eyes.
The Questionnaire.
Get your comic on.
Poke it out, poke it out, poke it out, poke it out.
Huh? The sounds inside my head have started again. Good. Yeah, that means it's time for the quest, ladies and gentlemen. I am the unknown factor, aka that Wade Wilson of hip hop. Yeah, and we ain't talking hip hop because this is the quest, and we're talking comics as well as we're playing D&D and doing some other I don't know, man. It's gotten kind of crazy, but I'm loving it. I am. I hope y'all are too, man. We just dropped a lot of congas with Eric Schultz. We got John Delaney with Scott Wojciak, and then we also just dropped Eric Schultz with Vlad as co-host, right? So all those episodes are available right now. You can check them all out. They're great. Talked to Lana about art and becoming an artist. So a lot of Italian food. There was a great deal of discussion between Erica and Lana about Italian food. It was very extensive. John, man, with him, we got it all at Futurama and a lot of other things as far as just everybody he's worked with. It was a great conversation between him and Scott and myself. And then the other conversation between Erica and Vlad, we talked about everything she's working on, which is extensive. And at the very end of the interview, if you ever want to figure out how to really offend an Italian, I mean, you might have seen it on TikTok, but Erica's face when I did that was worth just checking the end of the interview. I promised, right? Like I said, Vlad co-hosting that. But today, co-hosting, waiting for me to butcher his name again, is Lovern Kindzierski. I did it wrong. That was good.
Did it right? See,
Perfect.
why is it I do it right and I think I get it wrong, Lovern, and that's the problem because I actually pronounce it wrong.
Don't think about
it. Just let it roll of your tongue.
How you been, man?
Good, and you?
Just general madness, dude. I mean, really, like I said, I don't know if you've seen, Shiro's also taken over the graphics of the show, as far as from everything, including the backgrounds we're using, and man, I like to think she's made the episodes look so much cleaner. Lovern, with what she's done and the work she's put in. I mean, she's an artist and she's done that for a while, so she could obviously do that way better than
That's
me.
a good thing.
I was just like, I'm just gonna put it together, and then I got Scott Wojciak, man. He's booking and some interesting things coming up. Ooh, we'll talk about that later, Lovern, right? Because for now, what we're gonna get into. All right, right off the bat, something we got into with Lana, actually. Yeah, and we're gonna do that with Shadia Amin. Shadia Amin. See, I was like, look, I was so focused on getting your last name right, I butchered your first name, Shadia, and that doesn't. Shada. I'm terrible. One of these days, I'm gonna get somebody that, like, before the show is just like, look, dude, these are their fucking names. Don't screw it up. We gotta
get it right the first time. Before I'm leaving the podcast.
You could always ask us to write it out phonetically for you, and you could just.
I was gonna do that in the chat.
I'd still probably screw it up, man, because I really. At 40 years old, I've come to the conclusion I really think I'm at least partially dyslexic, which is why when you tell me right, I turn left, and when you tell me left, I turn right. I mean, I know the difference if I stop and think about it, but if I'm driving and you tell me one or the other, I'm going the other way.
I want to hear more about Shadia, so...
Yeah. I agree, though, but no, I wanted to get into something with you, Shadia, right off the bat, because it was the top thing you said you really wanted to discuss. And it was something that we've discussed with a lot of people on the show. We've had that conversation with Lana. And I mean, you've done a number of things. You've accomplished a great deal as an artist, right?
Thank you.
I mean, you have. You've done a lot, right? So what do you say to that person, regardless of age? Or actually, let me phrase this question differently. What do you say to that person that wants to step in and get to that point? And is there different advice dependent upon what age they are?
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of things that I learned as, somebody who went to art school, and just like coming with people from different walks of life. I think when you're young, and I talk about this before, it's like when you're the art kid, people tend to praise you a lot. And when you go to college to pursue that passion, you usually go through what I think is like three paths in your, like, you are confronted with the fact that you're going to have people who are actually better than you at your age, and that is just going to give you a big like crisis. I went through it after I graduated, because I felt like I was like not a good artist at all. Happened.
Oh, my apologies.
Okay,
Hey,
you're good.
I have to change your butt.
I think it's a kind of thing that I think a lot of people go through when you're well, the thing I've heard about it was when I went through university was a lot of the students would come in and they were the best artists in their high school, and then
Exactly.
suddenly they were in the same room as all the best artists in all of their high schools.
All the high schools, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think in that sense, I definitely noticed like people go like two ways about it, and sometimes one can become the other, or mold into the other. So what I think is either you double down to protect your ego as the young artist that you are, and you basically just really don't improve, or you actually are like, damn, I gotta learn. And it definitely was one that I was like very defensive about my work, and I did improve, but I think it wasn't until I went to grad school, because I ended up having like, I realized like I have a waking moment where I was like, oh, I'm not that good of an artist. When I graduated, it's when I decided to actually go ahead and tell my parents, like, I want to go to grad school. I need to do this. I got my butt kicked really, really hard. And for that, I'm grateful. One of my teachers was actually Tom Lyle. Rest in peace.
Yeah, I've worked with him.
Oh my God, he kicked my ass. I loved him though. He was a jokester, but he really, really, him and all of the other teachers at SCAD just really went out of their way to teach me. And they were like, no, like, yeah, you gotta get together. And after that is when I finally started getting gigs. I think if you go to art school, like, because it's something that I've seen on the younger kids, like, please, to the younger folks, just like, if you realize that you are like, if a teacher or an editor gives you feedback, because this is a matter not only of you actually improving as an artist, it's a matter of professionalism. Don't get defensive. Don't be rude towards your editors and your teachers, because they're not there to criticize you. They're there to help you. I have seen people my age, older than me, super embarrassingly act towards editors, like just respond very rudely, barred out of rooms, or just go on like a weird ego trip on them, like, oh, I'm just gonna go and fund my own animation, or I'm just gonna go to the CEO of Marvel and DC and tell them how much the new line of comics sucks. And when I tell you, I want to peel my face off in embarrassment and just kind of grab the poor editor and take them out of the room.
You're embarrassed for them.
I am so embarrassed. It's horrible to watch seeing that. And honestly, I think one of the other things that is so important is that, and again, this is for somebody who went to art school, if your teacher tells you, hey, do this, and it's something that you're not used to, don't try to be like, well, I decided to still do it not the way you told me, because I don't know, I didn't know how to do it. And I'm like, that's the point. The point is that you are supposed to push yourself and do clever work, because that's where the improvement actually comes. You might be able to discover a technique you actually discover. And one more thing is read comics. Like, you'd be amazed how much of the younger kids that I have seen develop their work. have not really read comics. I think they just read webtoons, which, mind you, they're still comics in my opinion. So, you know, some people just get like, oh, they're not real comics, but I'm not gonna argue about that. Comics are comics. It's just the evolution of a medium. But then I see kids who but they read that and they see how much, like, you can basically, a lot of people have gone from rags to riches with their webtoons and their comics, and they're like, oh, I want to do that, but they only consume what they see on webtoon, which just has a certain appeal that if you don't know how to do it interestingly, you're really gonna struggle improving as an artist. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it's kind of they don't understand that as much as webtoons is like comics, it's still it's a different funnel.
It's a different funnel.
Yeah, it's the flow between the artist and the viewer is so much different than just holding a piece of paper in your hand and looking through it. Or again, it's and again, like there is an application of comics that you could do as murals.
Yeah.
So you have to really be aware of what that says. Like if you see Spider-Man and he's 8 feet tall, I mean physically on a wall, the artwork is 8 feet tall. It's a completely different experience than if it's a small manga, black and white.
And even then, like things like manga, bande dessinée, and American comics all read so differently. And the way they expose their storytelling each way is very different. Even the way they format each other are very different. Like I see manga does a lot of bleeding in their pages. Meanwhile, bande dessinée just stays within the margins a lot of the time.
Oh yeah.
So it's different. Meanwhile, I think American comics definitely has a fun combination of both, which is nice. And that is something that I also think, like, you can take so much out of comics, but not only comics. I definitely have found like a lot of the way movies. I tell this to kids whenever I talk about comics. You see a scene of a movie, and then you think, how can I translate this into a comic? Where do I put my focus? How many panels do I want to use to frame this scene? I find it like a fun little exercise to at least do in your head. Like, how many panels can I make this movie scene work at? And why do I want to make it this amount of pages? Do I want to move fast by it? Do I want to focus on the little moments of the movie? And that is so important with the quiet moments, because you can draw amazing action scenes, but that is just in the end noise. If you can,
Cool.
yeah. So sorry, I saw it like right there across my my window. I have like 3 windows right here.
Nice.
So my dogs are nervous right now. As I was saying, I think learning to portray emotions is also so important. That is like something that is a big factor to me. You can definitely portray like a tender moment, and it can be fluffy and it can be nice, but like, do you actually get to that point where like the other person feels that? And I have talked about this. I actually did it before the show. I talk about like Freddie's arc in Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. Just because the way Freddie would act is the way that I would act when I was in a similar situation with the character, and that is just comes from a point of honesty.
Okay.
And I think that is so important. Is like, don't, for younger artists or artists who are developing a pitch, don't think only about the bombastic, which you can have comics that can be just the comic equivalent of, what is that, Kung Fury, I think, yes, which is a fantastic like short. If you ever seen the meme of Hacker Man, that's where it is from. It's like fantastic. Like, you can have that, but I think what people will talk about in generations to come is like definitely like a comic that can make you feel emotions, you know?
Yeah.
I have definitely seen comics that are massive when they come out, and but after a while, like, people are like, yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, they were fine when I read them, but then there's comics that is still people talk about today because they're able. Oh my God, the
Oh,
cat.
yeah.
Uh,
The first thing I wrote that was published a million years ago was a Christmas story, and I was incredibly lucky to get Tim Sale to make it come to life, and he and I had a really good conversation before he drew it out, and we found out when he was sending me thumbnails and that the apartment that I was writing the story about, which I used to live in, he lived in, like apartments are the same all over the place. And the apartment he stayed in when he was out of school was basically the same basement apartment that I had. The windows were slightly different in that. So he drew it. So we were both like into the story in that. And the thing that I love telling people about that story is that when it was published, I had no idea what to expect or anything. And then one day I was in my studio and I got a call from Matt Wagner, and he cussed me out for making his wife cry.
yeah,
he was being funny, but that was like, I was so thrilled that I had touched somebody like that.
That is so good. Yeah, that is exactly like what I think is so important. I think the moment you make somebody feel an emotion, or you make something that stays with at least one person, I think that's the moment that I think like you actually like I think you won as a storyteller. I think it's so important to think about how you portray those emotions, because I think a lot of people do like they have your emotional moments, but you can tell it's on a very superficial level. I think it's important to generally come on a place of kindness. I think the comics that people like the most whenever I did them, or the comics that have landed me further gigs, have been the ones where I talk or about my emotions or how I feel about a certain way, or come from a place of a certain experience. One of them was actually a short comic that I hope to publish one day. It's just I currently don't have time to pitch it. It's The Haste, which I did with one of my close friends. He's a writer. And we definitely went from an angle of like the constant pressure of a mom on a daughter. But then on top of that, add a superhero factor. So, and there's like not a specific, like, you can have like a controlling mom, but this one was specifically how Latino moms, specifically in Colombia, we've noticed that they are, which in this case, a lot of them are very fat phobic. They're constantly pressing on their kids, like, hey, you watch your diet because then your guy's not going to like you. Like things like that come from a place of, unfortunately, culture and how they were raised. Yeah. And how that manifests, and a lot of people like that portrayal. And but it's definitely interesting, because then if you see it from an American standpoint, you're gonna think like the mom is just fat phobic, and it's just the isolated case of a mom being fat phobic, but it's just like the general experience of a lot of Latino women that I've known, especially in Colombia.
Oh yeah, I think it's interesting because I've heard stories of. It's one of I enjoy watching RuPaul's Drag Race. Mm-hmm. And a lot of different queens are coming on, and they're talking about their experiences when they first came out, and some of them are talking about how that cultural pressure turned against them. Mm-hmm. But others are talking about how that pressure kind of made their parents accept them, and it worked for them. But it's the same, and it's from the same thing. But like, what happens when that pressure goes, like it becomes positive, and how different is it that makes it negative? And when they're both talking, they're sharing things that are essentially the same, but it comes out different ways. And I guess that's the interaction between the people rather than the environment. And that's I think that's a really interesting thing that comics need to explore a lot more, because certainly when I see it, if it's well done, because that's my caveat. If it's well done, it's really engrossing and makes you think and feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely one of those things that I think that's why certain comics like stay with people after years, is because like if you can relate to, like, understand where the character is coming from, other than like, wow, cool, that's so me.
Yeah.
Like I said it before, Laura didn't make me cry, like big time when I read it. I wish I read that comic a year or so before I actually read it. I feel like I needed that comic beforehand.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Good night, sir.
But yeah, I'm trying to think of other advice that I can give kids is your peers are not your competition. I think some of the worst thing that I have seen a lot of people do is, like, you can be a good artist and have like your group, but it's pretty bad when then like a big majority don't like you because of how you are clicky, or you trash talk other people that could have been your peers just because you feel insecure. I feel insecure about a lot of peers, especially younger ones who I find more talented than me. But like I will never badmouth them, because what do I win aside from one, potentially ruining a friendship, and two, looking like a jerk around other people who might know the artist, who might have, that might be their friend. I have definitely have burned bridges with people, and it's definitely interesting. Not interesting, but it's definitely like it makes you think, like after a few years down the line, seeing like, oh yeah, a lot of people actually do not like that group of people, even if it's not publicly. Whisper networks are still a thing in comics, so they're definitely like, oh, we don't talk to this person. They have been consistently bad mouthing others, so it's not something you want to associate with,
Oh yeah. Even if and even if they're being positive with you, how long is it going to be before there was somebody else, and that's going to be you on the end of that forked tongue.
Exactly. I think they're still. It definitely has gotten down, but weirdly enough, I definitely have met some people who still like carry a very high school behavior. And I'm like, we're pushing 30, a lot of us almost 40, for y'all to be acting like this,
I think it's sad, but I mean, isn't that look? I see that in some of the crap that my dog's butt just moved my camera.
Mm.
The crap like going on in politics nowadays. I mean, in all sincerity, it would be lovely if we could go away, but I don't know. Some of the stories I heard from one of the dudes that works up at the shop that I go to here recently about him being in the reserves and some things, and I'm like, oh, well. So he's like, yeah, we really just never moved past high school. We just kind of, yeah, we won't get into all that. It was really terrible. No, it was bad. It was bad. It was bad. I'm not trying to go into all that, but my kitten over here keeps wanting to swat the camera, and he's cute. All right, you see this?
Very cute.
Right, and his name is Scottie. Right, so Scottie Young.
Aw.
So Scottie Young, come meet Scottie sometime. That's all I'm saying. Let me put that out there.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so sweet.
Is he
Oh.
going to beam us up anytime soon?
I have my cat. Oh, there's some big old eyes.
He is mesmerized. Yeah, sorry. So that's why I swear, Lovern, this was just I was just like, I'm just gonna let you host the show. It wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are we talking about now?
I don't know. Do you have any other questions in the podcast?
Like,
and this is
is that what the unknown factor is, that we don't know what's next?
Man, this kitten getting all so yeah. She was meowing because we were like trying to we've just gotten this kitten, so we're like trying to break her in. So we kind of got her staying in one room, but she was meowing.
You need to give her a little bit of catnip before you're going to do this, so that she gets it all out of her system and she's exhausted in a corner somewhere asleep when the show's on.
What a baby, though.
I mean,
Better living through drugs, man.
it's like, Lovern said to drug you, Scottie. He's really screwed. But no, and the other thing you said, and I have not gotten the chance to look at this at the level that I wanted to, right? Rana one half. I never read that, right?
What? Pardon me. What hadn't you read?
Rama
What?
one half.
What?
Roman. How do you pronounce that? I'm pronouncing it wrong.
Ranma.
Ranma. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ranma was
Yeah.
actually the first comic I actually read, and bought. Actually, I was so excited. I was always very like the manga kid. I was like, oh my god, I want to go to Japan and draw manga. Now I don't wanna. Now I know how much they really like crank the poor mangakas over there. God
Yeah.
damn. But Ranma, actually, I used to watch the anime back then. I'm so excited about the remake. At the time of this is like, just been announced. And I wasn't like, it's just like, it wasn't until later that I found out like, oh, this is based on a thing called manga. And turns out that my local surprisingly didn't have a lot of American comics, but had more manga. I lived in Colombia, and Colombia is just one of those places where like Dragon Ball is the norm,
Oh yeah.
like the influence of Dragon Ball is huge back there. I think like Goku is Latino, please. So basically I saw the first volume and I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy it. I was 11 years old. I shouldn't probably not read that comic at 11 years old, because the amount of boobies that were there. But I also do appreciate the fact that Rumiko Takahashi tend to show breasts in a non-sexual way. But that is something that I have noticed in manga tends to be a little bit more okay with that. It's definitely something that I have noticed.
When
I think-
when my daughter was 11, I let her read Watchmen with me.
Oh wow.
I
So
think
I think that I don't think that, like, when you were reading that, were you reading it with anybody else? Was it just something you were reading? And
No, it was something that I was reading. I honestly didn't think much about it. It was just now as an adult I was like, oh yeah, those were a lot of boobs in that. But back reading it didn't really think much of it, But I was mostly like just trying to emulate. I spend most of my time just trying to draw the style of Rumiko Takahashi's work. Almost to the point that I can actually like draw it from memory. Actually, still, I've done it before. Yeah, I can just really like can draw some of the characters just by memory because I used to emulate her style so much. But yeah, Ranma and a Half was actually the first comic I ever read. I think after that, I will try to collect manga, but my parents were like, no, like we don't want manga. But then they were okay with me but getting Watchmen much later.
that's funny.
that seems very, very odd. But I do, as far as the nudity in manga, I completely understand, because especially in some of the quests we've been on over here with some of the creators from Europe, as well as Vlad, they look at nudity entirely differently over there in Europe. Like it's not a thing. I mean, there's so many creators that we've had on the show that we've had that discussion with. I think specifically Andy the Animal. I can't pronounce your last name, man, but I love you. He did Mother Trucker, which I think is one of the most funny satirical takes on nudity, because it's got it to where it's like it's all this violence and everybody's cool with it, and all of a sudden this chick like goes topless and people are hurling, because that is the American reaction. You know what I mean? I mean, it's there was another school shooting. Okay, wait, somebody's boob popped out on TV. Hold on a second. It's like, well, can we calibrate what we should be? You know what I mean? And I just think it was a great satirical take, but it is also something. I mean, it's very much different culturally, where you're looking at what that view is going to be. It's kind of funny to me.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting. Definitely a good comic that, in my opinion, kind of tackles that issue is Chainsaw Man. Because if you see the character of Denji, it shows, and a lot of people have discussed the way Denji acts. He is a 16-year-old, and I feel like if you show like the way he's somebody who clearly conflates sex with emotional connection. He was clearly groomed by a much more adult woman. And I think if that was tackled in an American comic setting, people will be absolutely not okay with that. And that will be either publishers or the general audience, but because they show it in manga, some people just still disconnect the fact that Denji is in fact a 16, 17-year-old kid, you know? And I don't, and yeah, it could be a cultural thing. I definitely found that manga, especially like Inu Asano is another one who tackles like a lot of nudity. Way on younger characters like Oyasumi Pum Pum does has like also like an assault scene of an adult woman to a minor, but if that were to be shown in an American comic, it will have a very adverse reaction. I think one of the comics that actually tackles, for example, that has been the Invincible comics, in fact, and people talk about how respectful those comics were about when Mark gets assaulted. But it's like the one comic that I hear people talk about that in the American scene, at least. Meanwhile, I see it at least talk about a little bit more in manga. I think manga definitely is a little bit less afraid of tackling this kind of more sexual topics.
Yeah.
And sometimes that includes some of them who are minors. And I feel like, I don't know what is it about how some people just will see it in American comic and not be okay, but then they see it in manga and they don't like process that those are like sometimes the characters are minors.
I have a thought on that, right?
Okay.
Right, and my thought is because those characters, the age definition is not that defined in quite a lot of them, depending on the style. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, Denji looks like an adult even though he's 16.
Yeah.
And but also it's something that I'm glad that at least more manga are willing to talk about, because there's so much like an inflation of manga that is like assault as a joke, being a pervert as a joke, and I hate that, So I think one of the, like I said, one of the more recent ones who does tackle that in a very interesting way has been Chainsaw Man. But again, I feel like if Chainsaw Man was done, you can make it the exact same way, but if it's an American comic, people will lose their marbles. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
No, it's interesting because it's a language and a culture thing, but it's also even in the language of the portrayal. Like if cartoon characters if it's a drawing of cartoon characters having sex, like Mickey and Minnie Mouse or something like that, people are more likely to laugh at it than if it's a serious drawing of like real people. If it's more realistic, then it tends to be getting into that more offensive thing because, well, that's real and that's just cartoon, so that's okay.
you just made me think of the Money Shot Comes Again that Tim Seeley just did. Is all I know is because I don't know for anybody out there that read that, but they did a whole thing where they've got like animatronics that are based after popular characters, and yeah, I don't remember what he called the Mickey Mouse, but there was definitely a take on Mickey Mouse within that. And if you read Money Shot, I'm pretty sure you know what happened with all those things.
Yeah, there's a million of them.
yeah. But I'm curious, beyond that, do you think there are other topics in America that we consider taboo to touch within the comic book industry?
I don't know. I feel like a lot of it is just stuff that people get at this point just angry just out of wanting to censor voices. Like, we had comics like Mouse and Persepolis and Gender Fluid. Just people wanna not talk about them. And we know why people don't want to talk about them. But when it comes to just certain topics in American comics, I haven't seen anything. I do find that there's actually a little bit more openness on what people want to tackle. It's just like how you tackle it depending on the audience. Because like I said, manga seems to be a little bit more open with the age range. They just focus on the demographics. So like you have shonen where like, oh, we want our demographic to be mostly younger readers. But at this point, I feel like shonen has just become like a free-for-all genre, you know?
Oh yeah.
And then you have like, your shoujo, your seidens. Like I was surprised finding out that there's seidens that take place in a high school setting. For example, Skip and Loafer, and that is in a high school, but it is considered a seinen by all intents and purposes of the audience, which is seinen is basically for more adult. Nothing happens. It's just a very cute slice of life, but it's like, oh, it's not shoujo. It's just a seinen. And I was like, okay, sure. So I think in American comics, I think it's definitely just more defined by the specific demographic and whether if it's gonna sell for the demographic. It's, I think, the big thing, the big issue. So there are topics that maybe you want to talk, but they're like, this might not be good for a middle school audience, or this story will be really hard to sell for an adult audience. So you are basically limited by the market and where they want to put that market. And if the publisher wants to tackle that age range, or if they specialize tackling that age range, I think that is like a big time of the limitations in manga, in American comics. And I think with stuff like the shonen magazines, I don't know why American comics don't really have implemented this yet. There could be something that I don't know. Maybe it's like money issues. Maybe it could be like printing, not guaranteed sales. But manga has the weekly shonens, and sometimes those can be a monthly or weekly, and they sometimes give one shots to people where you make your pitch, and if people like at least a short story for the pitch, then you can make it a big time manga. Because I think like a lot of the time people are limited of like, oh, this story won't sell, or this story is passé because it was a year ago, this certain topic was really hot now. So you want to pitch it and it's going to be passé, but in 2 years from when you finish the novel, it's going to be passé. But then with manga, you have stuff like Delicious in Dungeon and Witch Hat Atelier, which are like high fantasies, which you don't see often enough anymore, unless now they are currently, the trend is that they are connected to D&D. So we have stuff like, attached to big names like Critical Role, Adventure Zone. I think the most recent one that kind of takes away from big names and but it's still like wrap around the D&D setting is The Last Session, because I think that one takes a unique, a more like, oh, it's not just my campaign. It's like how the characters within living their outside life affects the campaign. Does that make sense? Okay. So I think unless you're able to put it an interesting spin, I haven't seen a lot of high fantasy comics in the American market. Meanwhile, manga is having that move with Free Eren, Witch Hat Atelier, and Delicious in Dungeon.
What do you consider high fantasy?
High fantasy is just when dragons, wizards, elves, the different classes that you see,
right? But
they are just in their own world. Meanwhile, like I said, Adventure Zone and Critical Role, they are based on the podcast that they are based on D&D sessions. And then The Last Session is also warp around the setting of the D&D. Meanwhile, the 3 other mangas that I mentioned are basically their own settings that they are in their fantasy world. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if eventually a publisher eventually comes with a high fantasy within American comics, because now that they see the success of Witch Hat Atelier and all that stuff, they want to bring that into here and try to have an American crowd have that.
Well, I don't know how they are picking stuff like that, and it's
I don't get it.
Yeah,
I don't get when they decide like, oh, this is a hot topic now, this is the time to do this, and I'm like, how do you know?
I had an experience of shopping around a property that Polish artist than another Polish, but he's really Polish. I'm Canadian Polish.
Mhm.
We were shopping. Sorry.
Hey, look, I don't mean to before. Look, that's because do you know Robert Bellamy and Dr. Steve Lovern?
No.
Mm-mm.
Oh, well, they were just on the show and they're both Polish and Jesus.
Okay. Anyway, the point is that we were shopping around a fantasy thing, but the fantasy world that we were wanting to show everybody was Polish mythology.
Ah.
And everybody I talked to has your reaction. That would be really interesting. I don't know anything about that mythology. That could be cool. And I thought we had and the artist was very involved in it. So I thought it was a really good concept with legs and that. But it's what we hit is everybody's like, well, you know, that's fantasy, and or, which is more of the case, all we would get is no thanks, no explanation. So I have no idea of how they're judging it and stuff like that. Whereas some things that I've pitched, I've had people come back to me and go, oh, well, Cyberpunk's out right now. And I go, well, it might be out right now, but by the time that we do this and it goes through your production and distribution, you know, it's not going to hit the shelves until next year. So
Mhm.
you're just guessing, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of the more interesting stuff is when people have the chance to make whatever they want a lot of the time, regardless of what's trending right now. And unfortunately, I see that happen just when already the person or the team has the reputation to do whatever they want, which kind of sucks because I feel like you're not giving a lot of people the chance. Unfortunately, you know, so unless you have the right way in, you're kind of cutting the butt on a lot of potential, like really good stories that could be happening.
Oh yeah, I know that. You're making me remember a time I was in a certain publisher's offices, and one of the big names had just put a book out, and it was getting a lot of acclaim. And this artist I knew was with me, and he was saying, well, he was saying, well, shit, I can do that. You know, like I pitched you something like that, and that's the style I wanted to explore in doing it. And he said, so you got behind that guy doing that, and the editor was immediately well, yeah, it's that guy. If you do it, we don't think it'll sell.
Oh my God! Wow! Ouch!
Yeah, ouch. Oh, and that's not even. I can tell you stuff that will make you question your choice of jobs. Some of the things that have happened in the offices of different publishers and at the hands of different editors and stuff like that. So, and you know, to be fair, everybody has their war stories.
Oh yeah, definitely I had mine. I don't
Yeah.
want to share them though.
No.
Oh, well,
But
then
yeah.
fine. If you won't get in to your war stories, then you said pet peeves, unless that's too negative. How are you going to get that negative with pet peeves? I want to know your pet peeves in comics because I'm curious if you don't want to get into
There's a concept that you're not attaching or not quite understanding. Have you heard of being blacklisted?
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens for real.
Yeah. And I think that is like one of my pet peeves. It's not being blacklisted, but more like definitely carrying yourself professionally. It's so important.
Yeah.
I think that my pet peeve when it comes to comic is definitely when how do I say that? Oh Jesus, thunder. A pet peeve that I have in comics. I mean, I think that kind of went with the advice area that I see is just a lot of people just carry themselves with so much defensiveness over their artwork that even the minimal feedback from an editor who's here trying to help you is seen as an attack, and it's not a personal attack. It sucks, yes, but it's not meant to, say that you're garbage or that you should quit,
That's so funny because earlier today, Scott, I was looking through something they're working on that I'm not going to get into details. Besides the fact that they're working on some stuff, and I don't even know if I should have said that. But he's got me kind of looking through it and being like, "Hey, man, tell me what you think." And part of my brain, because he's got dialogue and everything, and there's this part of my brain that's like, because I dealt with hip hop, and if you give a hip hop artist advice and they don't want to give it, like, look, it's whatever, all right. But part of me
Oh
was
yeah, giving advice is just childish behavior.
Yeah.
Like, you were a nothing burger back then. What makes you think that you're gonna treat others like they're nothing? Like, give back to the people that help you.
Well, no, I just meant like when I read this though, from Scott, and I was looking and I was like, oh well, I feel like this would be worded better this way, and I was like, I'm just gonna tell him, and I'm like, in the back of my brain, even though, man, I love Scott. Scott's one of the co-hosts, great guy. You know what I mean? I got nothing but love for him. There's this part of my brain that's like, man, I just offended him, and it's because of how I've had so many other people react when I was doing hip hop. So it's funny to say that you see that like that, because I haven't seen as much of it, I don't think, but I think there are certainly those people that are like, no, my art is pristine and don't tell me anything is in any way, shape, or form wrong with it. But I think you see that in all aspects of life, regardless of what it is. They'll always be that person. It's
Yes, because none of us have gotten out of high school.
Yeah. It's just a different flavor of high school, I think, is what it is.
Oh yeah, I know the shock that I went through when I first got into the industry, and back then I had an agent, and the agent had meetings set up with me, and I went and I had meetings in Manhattan with different professionals and all that. And after that weekend and I came home, I was like, holy crap, it's still high school. And I had some kind of crazy idea about an ultra or the ultimate level of professionalism being happening in those offices in New York. And it's not. But it doesn't mean that I thought I could behave any differently. And when I give people advice on that, depending on which stage they're at, like if it's somebody who's just started in the industry, my first concern about them is don't let the deadline and the what's going to come at you from the publishing end make you stop working on your art. You have to still keep exploring it and trying to grow it. Whereas a lot of people get caught in what I used to refer to as deadline doom, and they start hurting their style by making adjustments to it so that they can do it faster. And it used to be, I don't know, I haven't worked with a lot of editors as an artist. I've just been the colorist, but it used to be that the editors, say like the great old editors like Archie Goodwin and that, would be concerned about starting somebody that they thought was too or just wasn't ready to be doing a monthly book. So they might work with them on doing one shot and try to bring them along and let them develop their style. I don't know if that happens anymore.
I think it really depends. I think if like people have a really good pitch, they will let you do whatever you want. Not a serialized piece, by the way, because I think at that point they have to trust you a lot to let you do your own like multi-issue series. When I started, I did one 60-page graphic novel, and then I was able to manage A couple of first issues. Before that, I had a webcomic. I ended up quitting over creative differences on it. I do eventually want to come back because I did Olive and Popeye and I enjoyed that a lot doing it. It was a fun time. Currently I'm working on 2 novels on top of having a full-time job. So I couldn't give it the love that it deserved, but I miss my wife, Olive Oil, very much. But I think also, I feel like young artists should not be scared of saying like, hey, this is gonna need more time, but also not be scared of taking certain shortcuts. If you have to use a 3D model for your environment, that's fine. If you have to use certain like pre-made brushes, that's fine. Like I have a pre-made brush that basically is like pretend text. So whenever I have a book, I just like go and cool. I don't have to go line by line scribbling it.
Right.
I like little things that save time. I think my worry when it comes to using shortcut brushes, but which by the way, something super important. Finish is going to be always better than perfect a lot of the time. Yes, try to do the best work that you can for the younger, for everybody who needs to hear this. Try to do the best work that you can, but sometimes it could be how tired you are. It could be, in the moment, maybe it's not coming out the way you want. Just move on, and if you have time, come back and fix it. Because then if you're gonna stay all day working on one full page, you're gonna struggle and you're gonna frustrate yourself to death. All right, that's a piece of advice. My worry when it comes to shortcuts, when it's like pre-made brushes, it's when it kind of homogenizes everything too much, so to the point that I feel like certain art styles lose their uniqueness because they're all using the same assets or the same pack of brushes that weren't viral online, or because a really well-known artist uses them. Don't get me wrong, I find that a lot of those brushes help. Like I have a braid brush that helps me as a guideline for doing. I basically have like a lock braid that I use to guide myself to actually do box braids. But if I try to use a box braid brush, it does not work in my style, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I do have to draw them one by one. It sucks, but I at least I have that guideline from the log brush that I use to help me like make volume and make the layers. Does that make sense? In the under sketch phase. I do find like when you use like Iris's brush, or I have seen like stuff like mouse packs, and then you just like plop them in, you lose what make your style you in a way. Which is just something that I want people to be mindful about, especially now that I see a lot of almost scam behavior in so many ways. I definitely find that today also a lot of people who don't care about the arts want to use art as a side hustle. Like one time I saw this guy that took the manga of Food Wars and basically said, oh yeah, I went in, I scanned all of the recipes, and I basically made like a fan-made cookbook for Food Wars that I sold on Amazon, because Amazon just like has like its own publishing house where you can like just put the pages and they'll print it and come back in later. And I'm like, okay, cool. So you just literally stole the art from the artist, and I hope they break down lawyers on you for that,
Yeah.
I do see that now a lot of people, especially with AI, they make like packs and packs of books to sell on Etsy, on Amazon. And I feel like that big part of like that homogeneity is also like, we see those like, oh, let me do this portrait of your family, and it's clearly like a trace outline picture of a family portrait you just sent. And I'm like, oh my God. Or let me draw you as the Simpsons, and it's just like cursed. You just like trace the photo and put a yellow filter on it, and I'm like, oh no. So bad.
Well, as long as there's been art, there's been the scams out there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, I mean that is very, very true. People were trying to copy famous art long before the internet ever existed and sold it and sell it, So yeah, that's
Think about the big ass lady and her ex-husband. You
The
guys don't know about that? Oh my God. There was a movie about that Tim Burton did. Basically, it was this lady who was basically her art was very recognized for having like this big doe eyes on her
Oh,
on the
yes.
kid that she would draw. But then
I
her
know of
husband,
it. I didn't see it.
yeah, like her husband at the time was like, oh well, let me sell it for you because it's not gonna sell. But then he pretended as if he made it. So when they went to court, all she did was make a portrait to prove that she was the legit artist. And
Yeah.
he was like, no, my hand hurts, no. And it's just like, oh my God, insane behavior. Yeah, it's a really great, it's a really interesting story. You could watch the movie if you want to. So there's that.
How sad is it?
Very.
It's very sad.
Oh, the movie?
Yeah.
No. There's a very like tense part in the movie, but otherwise, I feel like it's a very nice. It's a very pleasant movie. It's like Tim Burton's similar to
Yeah.
his Fish
Yeah. I was
era.
just wondering because
Big Fish era. Sorry.
because that could have. I don't know enough about what really happened in that. That could have been really a really rough thing.
Yeah, no, the marriage was definitely abusive, but I don't know the extent of the abuse. But she was able to, like, divorce him and claim back her art, thankfully.
Good for artists.
Yeah.
I do find it crazy how much I've come to see that, especially like it makes me. I'll tell you the main one that I'm like, it's so odd to me is when you see people at conventions that are selling like metal prints. And I'm like, I wonder if you have any kind of rights or any like, how did you just like print all these out and you're here?
Oh yeah,
And
no, I've seen way too many people just like take an image from Google and print it and sell it as merch.
Oh yeah.
It's like American cons have definitely cracked down on that. Certain cons in Colombia that I've been to, no. And I wish there was more rules about that. I just think people there are not as aware, but I'm just like, oh my God, please.
And internationally, the theft is horrible. My wife, she works in the comic industry, but she also has her own side hustle where she's doing prints and selling her designs for pins and stuff like that. And every once in a while, we'll see a site operating out of China where they basically copied her pin or something that she's done,
Oh.
and they're selling it on their site. And it's just a complete theft. But what are we going to do? Fly to China and hunt them down?
I know, right? I think the most crazy one that I saw is that my artwork was in a piñata in Mexico.
What?
So, okay, long story. I know Jorge Gutierrez, the guy who did Book of Life, Maya and the Three, and El Tigre. Super nice guy. So back when I was still like, oh my God, I'm a fan. Me and several artists on DeviantArt or Tumblr did like a whole like, oh my God, we love the Book of Life, so let's do a big collaboration. So everybody got to draw a character for the Book of Life. I don't know where my piece is that I did, but I drew Manolo's mom in it. And basically I uploaded the PNG online. So of course, high quality transparency. Somebody took it in and put it on a piñata in Mexico. So when Jorge went to Mexico and took a picture of the piñatas, I was like, bro, that's my artwork in that piñata. Somebody stole it. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
what is there a part of you? I mean, in that moment, with the way the world is now, it has come to a point that when you put art out on the internet, I do think a part of you has to accept that, oh, I just put that out there like that, and without doing a number of things, I don't think there's any way you could guarantee that it's not going to get printed at some point in time.
Yeah, I definitely, I think like back when, I think a lot of people had the basic protections of like, oh, upload it like low resolution, watermark it properly,
Yeah.
all those fun things. But I think now it definitely has gotten harder because even like a picture of the artwork is enough for it to be scraped. So I recently I've done pieces that I have not uploaded yet just because unfortunately glaze takes a lot of, it's gonna explode my computer if I even download it. So and web glaze is like I cannot use it because for some reason they're like, oh, you need an invitation. I'm like, well, I don't got that.
Wait, what is
So
glaze?
glaze is basically a thing that disrupts what the AI is able to read. So you will see like a weird filter on it. Doesn't really affect much the artwork, but basically once it gets like put through the machine to be read for AI, it has trouble actually reading it.
Huh.
Yeah, they really outdid themselves with that. And now they have also a new thing called Nightshade, which basically corrupts the program. So what it does is that, let's say you draw a cat, but then they put the input like, oh, this is a cat, but then the program ends up putting up a dog. So like and the more you add to it, the more it just slowly corrupts the data. So if a certain AI machine ends up scraping like a bunch of nightshaded pictures of cats, you can write cat on the generative input and it's gonna give you a dog.
So they've already figured out a way to stop that if it was done in a large enough manner.
Yes, but it's a cat and mouse game because as soon as the AI evolves, they have to basically make sure to take the countermeasures to be able to keep up with it. It's gonna be, I think, until people realize that is not gonna make them a lot of money, or like it's not worth the money that they're putting into it because it consumes so much energy and so much money.
Yeah.
It's when they're finally, a lot of corporations are gonna stop using it, you know. But unfortunately, a lot of like more common folks that are not informed are like, oh my god, I can make myself do a silly dance of a photo.
Mhm.
And as long as like a lot of until people don't get bored the same way people got bored of, you know, Snapchat filters and stuff, it's not gonna stop at the moment, unfortunately. So it's gonna be, I'm hoping like in the next year or so people stop and they realize like, oh yeah, this is actually giving us issues.
I'm afraid that it's done so much damage though, because I was talking to a woman I know who teaches film,
Mhm.
and she's telling her students now that if you're not learning how to use AI, you're just going to get rolled right over.
Okay.
Because she's seeing so much of it being applied in the industry.
Yeah, I definitely have talked with people in the industry though, and they said like, yeah, you can. A lot of people have used it to present pitches, but the moment they actually have to come up with the concept and stuff, they're screwed because they have to basically find whoever they copyrighted. They use the, you know, the stolen work from and copyrighted. And then a lot of the time they cannot, like, yeah, you can use it to present the concept part, but now when it's time to you actually develop the story, you're gonna struggle. There's also the struggle that no matter what you put, you cannot do tweaks on it. You are just gonna have to keep inputting it, and it's gonna always give you a similar but not what you wanted with like whatever modifications, which is also what's so funny because then there's been a lot of like AI prompters trying to commission artists. Hey, could you fix that hand? Say, could you do the corrections for me? And of course, all of them are going to be like, no, are you crazy? The audacity.
That
Yeah, and the ultimate thing is that once they've built their pool of resources, that's what you're just going to get. It's like basically having one concept artist do all the concept art for all the movies that are being made. It's not gonna be a lot of variation. There's not gonna be any kind of difference. It's just gonna be, you know, they're all going to be wearing the same T-shirt.
Oh yeah, I think after a while it's just gonna get all glossy, looking the same. So you're not gonna get a lot about it because no matter what, even if you're trying to emulate a specific artist, after a while it's just gonna be cannibalizing itself. You know.
Yeah.
And I think the sad thing is what you brought up a moment ago is that people don't realize the amount of energy and that's taking to run the way that it is, and just the massive resource that is. I mean, look, if you just let the artist make the art, it's kind of a resource. What are you really using it for? Unless you're using it for like, look, calculations within like to diagnose somebody, that's sick. All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
If you're using it to make calculations and replacing the CEO of a company, and you ain't paying the
Please
CEO.
replace them
I
all.
hope
Yeah, you
so.
know what I'm saying? You ain't paying the CEO anymore. Now you got an AI that's doing it with no emotion and it's completely baseless and isn't taking a huge chunk of money. So, there's that. But I mean, short of aspects like that, I mean, when you put it into where it's doing art, I don't understand why.
I think you're talking about a thing that most people don't really talk about and don't really understand, and I think it's this thing called common sense. And
People don't
Well,
have that lately.
but it doesn't exist
then I
because
will say no.
certainly it's because sense isn't common, and common sense is not a sense.
Well,
So it's a concept that's nice, but it doesn't exist.
Well, Alan Henry has a whole heck of a lot of it because he was the one that was like, we should use AI for CEOs. And I was like, that's the most brilliant thought for AI I think I've ever heard because what else is purely. Because look, stories, when you're writing stories, when you're doing art, it's not purely analytical. As a CEO, what you're doing is purely analytical. Yeah.
Have you
What job?
I honestly think it's also a matter of definitely with just the way social media apps are. I think people just see something and they think, ooh, shiny. And I think in a way, I don't want to name certain like critics online of like media, but I do think that the way we also look at media right now, and that's whether it's the news or movies or books, there's definitely been a decline of like learning to interpret what you see and discerning the information. I do see that now you have somebody years ago on Tumblr said like, well, sometimes the curtains are only it's just only that the curtains are blue, and you're not meant to look past that. And I used to think like that. Now I fully regret that sentiment because now people are unable to have nuance with their characters. You have to basically have everything spoon-fed when it comes to your information,
Well,
and I think
go ahead.
no, that and I feel like that is what it comes. So now you have something that I can make this story or make this and just take it on face value. So you have something that is just gonna speed up the process, and people are like, oh my god, wow, yay. So people don't look past the shiny aspect of it, basically.
And I think you're definitely right on that. And I think as far as what you said about critic, it's funny because I man, I wish I could remember where this discussion was had, but there's been a lot of quests over here. Y'all go check them all out. They've all been phenomenal, funny, it's gone all over the place. But for this particular one where I want to take it next is if you look that in especially the more and more recent you get, it became less about the story and more about. Did you see that CGI where it just didn't look real? Did you see
Oh
where
yeah.
the Starbucks cup was in the shot and it wasn't supposed to
Yeah,
be?
that's
Would
the
you?
kind of thing that
Yeah.
I'm saying. Like the moment somebody starts grilling me about the mechanics of my world, I'm like, shut up, I don't care. Like, it is what it is. Like,
you know what I bring
kick
up?
rocks.
Yeah, I like to bring up to them. I'll basically ask them if they've ever been to a play. And in a lot of cases they haven't. But when you go to a play and a guy comes out on stage and he's doing this whole thing and he's on the stage alone and there's no set and he's doing an impression of this guy standing and it's this because you okay. Let me step back one. It's
No, I know what you mean.
yeah, it's like a one-man
Yeah.
play, and you look at it, and no, he doesn't have any set, but yet when he's doing his delivery in that, you know that he's in Africa and he's Nelson Mandela, and all of this stuff is there. So for them to look at what you've drawn and say, well, that's not a 1975 Camaro. Is that important to the story?
Yeah, exactly. I think that, like, now, if you have to explain the mechanics of something, that will make sense in something like concept art, where you have a weapon and then you have to explain how kind of the weapon recharges. That
Exactly.
I get. Okay,
Yeah.
read The Skillful Huntsman. It's a great book about concept art. Stop it. Sorry, my dogs are fighting. So. A good example of that, actually, now that you mentioned theater, is actually I like years or two ago, I saw a production of Bright Star, and something that they did is because there's a scene where there's a character on a train, they just brought benches, they put the benches, and then all the characters then just basically sat on the benches and just started like doing like this.
Yeah.
And like I'm like, okay, makes sense, yeah, because when you're on an old train, you're bound to kind of move, you know.
Yeah.
They didn't have to build a set at all, and that worked fantastic.
Oh yeah, and you and if you make them think a little bit, like you get them to remember what was do you know the Bill Sienkiewicz Daredevil graphic novel with Kingpin, and I think Frank wrote it. I think Frank Miller wrote it. Was it called Love and Death or something? Some kind. They're gonna punch me out next time they see me. I'm supposed to remember, like that.
Yeah, at least I don't feel as bad. I mean,
But if you look at that and you look at how what Bill was drawing and stuff like that, and what it said, that's different. And I'm sorry, but if you think back to all of the superhero comic books that have ever been drawn, and if they ever do a period thing where they go back to some woman in the 1800s, don't tell me that her dress is accurate to the designs of that period, because you know they're not in any way, shape, or form.
Like, unless I want my thing to be historical, like, you know, my own version of Bridgeton in comics, I will care.
Yeah.
But if it's just like a thing that doesn't really pertain to the story, like at that point, like, yes, you want to be one thing, you do always want to be at least as accurate as you can. But if you start giving me like the news, it's like, no, it's just a thing. You never would have used this color in this era. Like, if it's not relevant to the plot, I don't care. Okay.
Yes. Well, like you said about Bridgerton, Bridgerton does not pretend to be a historically accurate retelling of life at that time. It's not. It's a fantasy. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to look at something like Bridgerton and go, well, they wouldn't have done that, and it wouldn't have been people like that there at that time, and well, that's fine, but this isn't a real world. This is fantasy.
Yeah.
But the other thing happens too. Like, I had the experience of coming out of Amadeus.
Mm-hmm.
Listening.
I need to watch that one.
Oh, that's so good.
I know, and then they're probably just like, oh my God, this is not accurate. Like, okay, and I don't care.
Well, people were coming out of the theater and talking to each other about, wow, you know, I didn't think that they lived like that back then. You know, it's so interesting. I'm going, they didn't.
No.
It's a play. It's a yeah.
Oh my God! Open the schools.
Wasn't it Peter? I think Peter David got into trouble once when he was going into the movie Titanic,
Mhm.
and there were people waiting in line, and he came out, and he said as a joke to the people in the line, "The ship sinks," and people started calling him names and all that for ruining the movie for him. Because they did not know the history. So
Yeah,
they didn't know the ship was going to sink.
It's for me, it's crazy. It's like people see a movie and then they take it as at face value, like,
Yeah.
and I'm like that is a story. Like in the end, yeah, like you said, it's a thing with biases. So there's so many movies where, for example, The Sound of Freedom, which was very inaccurate, and what happens? Several people in Colombia take it as face value, and I'm like, that is like. Oh my god! Like the movie just frustrates me. As a Colombian, that movie frustrates me so much. And then seeing people from Colombia say like, "Can you believe that?" I'm like, "That is not real."
Yeah.
And like the guy was just making up stuff. Like I'm not saying that there's no human trafficking there, but not the way that he was like portraying it.
Mhm. Well,
It
yeah.
was crazy. Or like when people were taking like the Passion of the Crisis like face value, like it's a good it's an interpretation of what happened, but that is what it is. It's an interpretation. They're not acting like they traveled back in time and showed the actual like account. And in fact, hilariously for me, a good example of that will be the way you see the story of Moses, actually, because you have the Ten Commandments movie, and then you have the Prince of Egypt. So, and the Ten Commandments was clearly more like an epic story of like, yes, I'm Moses and I'm gonna part the sea and all that stuff. And it shows like everything from the beginning to actually when they reach the promised land. And if you've seen that, it's a sad ending because he doesn't get to go to the promised land. Meanwhile, something like the Prince of Egypt is a little bit more hopeful, and then you think like, oh my God, Moses has his happy ending, and then you see his relationship with his brother, and that is such an interesting angle to tackle from that. But that, in the end, is an interpretation of a Bible story,
Oh yeah.
And then, people are gonna take it to face value, be like, can you believe that happened in there? And I'm like, we don't know because we were not there, man.
Well, how many people believe that Jesus is a blonde Caucasian man?
Hey,
A blonde
don't you go speaking. Hey,
lover of
And
Leonardo.
classically, and Roman features.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna get this whole show shut down saying he's not Lovern. Now, come on, man.
I look more like Jesus than the Renaissance Jesus.
Yeah. I mean,
I
yeah.
say that my parents will kill me.
I remember when National Geographic commissioned a guy to.
I remember that, and people lost it, and that was like years ago. Like I was like in middle school when I saw that.
Yeah, it was a while.
And it's so funny because now some of the most popular art that I've seen of Jesus is with that version of him.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so people have been like drawing Jesus as like a carpenter, like the human that he was. And and it's so nice. Like it's so funny how people love it, that version of it, and it's nice. Like I was raised Catholic, but like openly, I have my hangs up with like the people who go to church and the church itself and the system of the church. But when I tell you, like the Bible has some amazing, also some of them are hilarious depending on your angle. They have great stories. So that's why I have like no qualm. I feel like something like Prince of Egypt, had it come today, people would have lost their shit.
Yeah.
For either or reasons. That was a lightning in a bottle movie. But you see how great those stories are,
I don't know if people would have lost their shit over here, but
they would have. I feel like now.
No, I mean in Canada. I'm from Canada.
Fair. That is a good point. Maybe.
Maybe.
Like I think that the loud minority would have lost it.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait, now what film? You jump between so many films, and I'll be honest, my head was kind of stuck on the Passion of the Christ, which is funny because
I've never watched that film. I've heard about it, but I was like, I don't really care enough to watch this film because from what
I watched it voluntarily one time and that's it. And then I was forced to watch it like at least 2 or 3 more times, especially during like the Catholic Holy Week. And that was set up one time.
Which film was that?
Passion of the Christ.
Oh, yeah.
Like I think it was if I remember twice, different groups of people. I was made to watch it on the Friday, which is the Friday that Jesus was, because I think canonically Jesus got crucified on a Friday. He comes back the Sunday after. So I was basically made to watch it the Friday because like he dies and this is how he dies, so we're gonna watch it the day he dies. And I'm like, cool, man, wonderful.
Yeah, they don't let me back into church, so I can't comment on that.
we're talking Passion of the Christ. That Scottie's made plenty of debuts on the show. Yeah, he's been all over this episode.
We should. I'm bursting with all kinds of things to say about Bible and religion. So we should talk about something else now.
Yeah. We're gonna get like, I was like,
You really don't want to get me going.
Y'all don't want to
No.
let's not do that on this show.
let's not do that.
I do that with my music. I don't do that on the podcast.
I like Catholicism. I just don't like the people within Catholicism. It's the best way. I don't want to say I like it. That sounds weird, but
Okay. I meant to ask you about your last name.
it's Lebanese.
What is your background? You said
So
you're from Colombia, but
yeah, I'm from Colombia. So Colombia actually has a gigantic Arab diaspora. Shakira is actually a good example. We're both from the same city. Her name is Shakira Mebarak Ripoll, actually. So she's very Arab. In fact, I think where I lived back when I growing up, I was like a few blocks away from her parents. Yeah. And my dad was like, yeah, you see that building? That's her dad's building. That's where her dad lives. I was like, oh, can we go? No.
I understand she's not your favorite, though.
Huh?
I understand she's not your favorite, though.
No, I like Shakira.
Oh, I thought there was something in the questions about her. Was it a
No,
song of hers,
there
or-
was a period that was psychological torture at that point.
Oh, okay.
Basically, Hips Don't Lie was like, she had the chance to make like this big song and it was a massive hit, but it got to the point that it was just playing back to back to back to back on every single radio station.
Oh my God.
And this is what happened. Basically, one time my mom had to do an errand. She's like, hey, can you wait in the car? I was like, sure, that's fine. This was back when like I think I didn't even have like, I just right after that I had my first like iPod. I had a Sony Ericsson Walkman, but I had nothing else to listen music with. So the only thing that I had was the radio in the car, and every single, not even joking, every single radio station. And I was like waiting there for like a while, was back to back, Hips Don't Lie. I was losing my marbles.
Wow.
So it was either that or the silence. And I think at that point I just chose the silence because I was just feeling so irritated. Like I will say, Shakira's like, I especially like, I'm gonna sound like back in my day, but Shakira's like older stuff was fantastic, especially when she was not afraid of including more Arab in her music. Like Ojo Hasi is a fantastic song. It's like such a hardcore song in my, not like metal hardcore, but it's just like it goes hard. It goes really hard. Ojo Hasi is just great.
My second wife was a belly dancer.
Nice.
Of not of cabaret stuff, but more traditional.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But going back to that, basically, I am Lebanese from my dad's side, Palestinian from my mom, but like my grandparents, all born in Colombia. I think it wasn't until like my great grandparents that we were all like
nice,
like non-born in Colombia. So yeah, it just stays with us. And I didn't change my last name when I got married, just out of tradition. Like, we don't do that in Colombia. So, and my husband was like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So, I just keep my name as it is.
Good.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I hilariously, I recently went to Miami, and Miami has like a couple of places where you buy like really good frozen Arab food. So I was literally eating kibbeh with pita bread and latme for dinner, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
love it very much. Uh, because I struggle for some reason, I really struggle cooking Arab food, but I'm really good at making Colombian food. But that makes sense. I was like heavily raised in Colombia. Every Sunday, I will go to like an Arab buffet, and it was great. I miss it so much. I like, at least I can make Arab food because at least where I live, there's a good Latino community, especially Colombians. My boss's wife is Colombian, so he's like points me to like good places around the area. But Arab food, I'm still like struggling finding some. So it's whenever if I find a good place in here, I'll be so happy.
Why is this quest starting to like increase my hunger too? Between the last, I swear, the
I know
last
I'm
couple,
actually kind of hungry. I'm actually gonna go
the
eat
last
after
couple
this.
quests we've had, I'm serious. It's just gotten some in-depth food conversations on some real specific
Food is
food.
good. Food
Like,
has a story.
hey,
Oh yeah.
Read Delicious in Dungeon.
look, all I know is
Food,
if you talk to Eric,
food,
never try to take
food
Eric
is
Schultz
food
to
is
Olive Garden.
food is alchemy.
It is.
Yes,
I'm actually while I'm working, I was actually listening to one of my favorite books. It's called like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel.
yeah. That's
And
wonderful.
it's one of my favorite, and it was literally talking about the alchemy of food
Oh
and
yeah.
how things change whenever you put them on fire. And I'm like, yeah, I love that.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and you just start to talk about concepts like bread isn't as
Rest
an
is just a
element.
mass until you
It,
put it in the fire, and it just basically transforms
and
and stuff.
it's basically fire and air, because
Uh-huh.
because bread is just full of air and that. But
Yeah,
yet
that's why
it's
you punch it
oh
after a
yeah,
while.
it's a wonderful food.
I gotta know though. Have you guys seen the menu?
Yes. Actually, one of my teachers, Reikoto, storyboarded for the movie.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
I love that movie, and I do like. I think that's funnily enough. Now that you say that, that movie definitely makes me think not only about the pretentiousness that certain food has. If somebody gives me a deconstructed pasta dish, I will actually lose my marbles. Somebody did a deconstructed tiramisu, and I wanted to scream because the point of it is that the ingredients are supposed to sit on each other. You know.
Yeah.
I saw that and I felt violence in my heart.
I think yeah, I agree with you on that. That there are some things that you can't do that to because it defeats what the original dish is doing. It's not like a deconstructed burger. That I get. That I get. You can do that.
I will make a deconstructed sandwich if I'm depressed and I just don't want to sample it. just eat it. But no, that actually, now that you mentioned the menu, makes me think a lot about, well, that's called a charcuterie deconstructed sandwich. But it makes me think also a lot about the pretentiousness when it comes to art. And then why do we think certain comics are better than others? Or in fact, why certain art mediums are better than others? Because I do feel like people tend to scoff at comics as a whole, but then you have somebody, I think it was Roy Lichtenstein. Let me.
Lichtenstein?
Yeah.
Oh, the guy who did the giant blow-ups that he stole from comic panels?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why suddenly when he does it is high art?
Now
hate him with burning. I'm not shy to say.
Now you're getting into my fine art background.
Okay, tell me about it, fine art boy.
Do you know who Marcel Duchamp is?
Yes, the creator of that. Not the creator, but he did the toilet. One of the primary guys of Dada.
He took a urinal, which is not art, but he put it in an art gallery, and he called it the fountain, and then it was fine art. So what Lichtenstein did was he took the comics and put them into galleries, much the same way that damn it. No, not Duchamp. I'm thinking the other guy now. The Campbell's soup tins.
I know. I blanked out.
Yeah,
The
and he
Campbell
also
Soup
designed
guy.
the Rolling Stones Hot Licks
Mhm.
stuff, and he had an amazing magazine that he published. For
Andy
years.
Warhol. There we
Andy
go.
Warhol. Yes, thank you.
I had to Google it
War-
because I
War-
literally
yeah,
had
and-
a book in my parents' house about
Oh
him.
yeah, and Warhol did the same thing with the soup can labels,
Mhm.
putting them into a gallery, and suddenly they're fine art. I've been to see displays where a guy took a brick and lined up, like 30 bricks in a row on the floor in a gallery. Suddenly it's fine art, and he can sell it for $30,000 to somebody. And I'm going, just go to Home Depot. It's cheaper.
Yeah. Which in a way, like when I think about that, like Dada is interesting because, like, I get the point. Like we don't deserve art as a species after coming out of World War One in a way.
Yeah.
But I feel like in that people definitely took advantage to, like you said, do the weird stuff that they did and say, well, it's art. And then talking about like, the ugly underbelly of the art business, because you damn well know that a lot of it will be used for money laundering. And just saying like, oh, well, I bought this piece of art.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's clearly a money laundering scheme. And the thing that specifically gets me about Liechtenstein is, the original, I remember, I don't remember which was the artist that he stole from, but there was a comic about.
Yeah, there was it wasn't just one that he stole.
But there
from.
was one that specifically talked about his experience because he would see Liechtenstein's work like sell for so much money while he was struggling financially.
Oh, I know.
And if I recall correctly, if it wasn't for the Heroes Fund, he would have probably been in the streets. They gave him like money for him to get groceries, and they like gave him a bottle of wine as like a little like, hey, come on, man.
Real quick.
Oh no! Great Cheers for Heroes Initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
totally check that out. But I just have to take back a second on what you said just a moment ago. Money laundering. It's mainly going to be used for money laundering. Wait, what?
So okay, this basically, I think it was Adam Brings Anything that explains it better than I can explain it in this podcast, out of my own memory. But the thing about it is that a lot of money, there is a lot of money laundering within like the fine art world, because let's say Lovern does a piece, and it can be just, he drew a little stinky poo poo. He drew the dick butt, the well-known dick butt. And basically, me as an appraiser, I can say like, well, that is worth $500,000, and I pass it through the art collector, and it just comes as clean money, but it's clearly money that it was made illegally. But because I'm giving you the money to pay for this art piece, it's basically legit money. Does that make sense?
You know how money is laundered in Las Vegas?
Yeah.
Just try and put the model of selling art with the different galleries and appraisers and stuff like that, and include them instead of pit bosses and casino owners.
Not something I expected. I don't know what else to say to that. You know what I mean? I really do not know what else to say in regards to that particular statement. Besides, it is not something I would have expected to hear to that.
Yeah, no, I was genuinely surprised when people were talking about that. Just like I didn't know it was a thing. I just nearly thought like, oh well, I guess rich people have no taste, which in a way is kind of true. They like, I see some of the stuff and I'm just like, what are you doing? But it definitely kind of opens my like, okay, that makes sense. Like that at least makes me think like, okay, you maybe are not that rotten in the brain. You're evil, but you're at least not as,
I think I'd rather be. I think I'd rather than be stupid.
And about backgrounds of that, how much do you are you interested in maybe in a future project or something that has something to do with Colombia or maybe folk tales or of that, or of maybe some Arab stories? And
Actually, fun fact, it's one of the novels that I'm working on. It's actually called Mixed Up. And it's about our actress Sarah Amini. She's like me. She's Arab Colombian, but in a different way. Basically, her mom was Colombian. Her dad is from Iran. So she's also mixed race. So it's literally like it's gonna be a trilogy actually, and it's just gonna talk about her experiences growing up, being mixed race, especially because in like this is the thing, Arab Colombians are very common, like very common. I am not special in my country, but
Okay.
then you come to the US and people are like, that is so weird, so random, so exotic. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. And funnily enough, that's actually one of the comics that when I was at the very beginning talking about, putting your honesty in the comics was
Yeah.
because of I was part of the Alloy anthology that talks about that experience because I felt like, oh, do I deny that I'm Arab or do I deny that I'm Colombian? And then whatever was convenient for me because I either was being looked as a terrorist or as a drug smuggler. So whatever was convenient for me at the time, and
Wait,
uh,
no. How do you pick what's convenient between being viewed as either a terrorist or a drug smuggler?
because
What
sometimes people will be like, oh, Colombia, cocaine jokes, which I absolutely hate. And I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm Arab, but whatever. And then people definitely it basically back fresh out of 2001. If you went to the US and you look like me, even if I mean, you see that I'm not wearing anything that could be any resemblance of being Muslim, but
Yeah.
people will glare at me hard.
Really?
My brother, oh yeah, have you seen my face? So it was, and I was a child. I was like 9, 10 years old. I still like people will still I mean people still glare at me ugly sometimes, especially elderly white folks will glare at me ugly. Especially if I'm with my husband who's white and they see us holding hands and they're like or scoff at us, and it's just like cool. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
It's
It's bless
there's
my father-in-law. He almost like was ready to get in a fight with some random lady at Target for looking at me ugly, and I was like, "Hey, man, it happens. I'm sorry. I
yeah.
get profiled. I still have. I think twice I've gotten profiled by the police, and then had an immigration car like drive slowly next to me, and I'm like, I'm just going to class, okay, man. Just please leave me alone. I just went to grab a coffee.
Yeah. Can I live?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had once a lady told me, I told her like, please don't cut me in line. You're cutting me in
Yeah.
line, and she started going off about how I was stealing her jobs, and I'm like, I'm a
What?
student. I,
Look, no.
I'm
My God.
literally,
You have the best response
I'm
to
like
that.
literally paying to be here. I am giving
Yeah.
this country money to be here. What do you mean I'm stealing your job? Also, are you gonna be a comic artist? Am I
Exactly.
stealing your comic artist job?
Did you tell her that?
Uh,
Please tell me you told her that. Please.
No, she was like
Oh,
drunk.
What's the
oh,
point? No,
that's
come on.
What
What's
was
the
the
point?
point? I was
Yeah.
like, me and a friend were just like, they're like, just kind of like, he was also ready to fight her. I'm like,
for
don't.
everyone. No, for everyone. The point of you looking at her and going, "Ma'am, do you intend to be a comic book artist?" would have been for the benefit of everyone around. Where they were like, "She just shut you the up, didn't she?"
Like,
You seem to think that you can make points with stupid.
Uh,
I know.
Stupid is
no.
There's
That's
like
isn't
that
no
cool.
wasn't.
point. That's just
Yeah,
like,
Yeah.
the point's
no
not for
matter
the lady
what, they
being
want to be
stupid.
right. They want to have the last word.
Yeah. The
No
point's not.
point.
Yeah, the point's
Yeah.
not for the lady being stupid. It's for everyone around that can hear that hopefully finds the amusement in that. The stupid
That is very
person,
true. No,
whatever. But
mm,
entertain the rest of the crowd.
Yeah, but nah, it was. I was tired also. I don't have it in me to have a fight.
No, ignorance is ridiculous. When I grew up in a white little town in northern Manitoba, and I was the wrong color of white.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I was the wrong color of white. I was Polish and Ukrainian, and the accepted popular group in that was Ukrainian, and there was some English settlers and stuff like that. So I actually had the experience of being in the next little town, which is the largest Icelandic settlement outside of Iceland, and I met a girl there, and we hung out at this Icelandic festival. And I came into that town the next week, drove my car in, and I was sitting in a restaurant, and 4 guys came in through the front door with a horsewhip. And I actually leaped over the booth I was in and almost knocked somebody over as I went out through the kitchen and got into my car and locked the doors before I started it, and then started the car up, and then they surrounded the car, and I drove through them to get out of there.
That is crazy. I'm so sorry that happened.
Yeah.
It's a good story now.
You almost got horsewhipped for being the wrong
Yes.
color of white.
Because they did not want me touching their women.
It's insane.
That's okay. I married a partly Icelandic woman, and her parents didn't come to the wedding. That was my first wife.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it. It's long time ago. I'm old.
Pete Lovern, hey man, yeah. Oh man, it went from food to real life and got real serious, real quick over here on this
I'm not even
particular
going to
quest.
tell you about how many times I was roasted by the police in the 70s because I had long hair. How many jail cells I was thrown into. How many times I was handcuffed and thrown in the back of a car, driven out of town, and then thrown out of the car and made to walk back.
Oh my God, Christ!
Yeah, and this is all. I'm sorry. This is all white people.
The wrong shade of white. That's crazy.
Yeah. Ignorance is amazing.
But he's a white dude telling it, and that doesn't make sense to my brain.
I'm back. I mean, I have nothing else to say. Oh my God.
Yes, but I'm going through what I've been through. I mean, I'm so sorry that you're having to deal with that.
No, I'm so sorry you deal with the stuff you. I like. Thankfully, like I'd never been thrown in a police car. Or anything on that level. Oh my God! Like again, all I get is like ugly glances.
I don't even want to get into the ugly stuff.
Oh.
It would be nice if we could find a way to get rid of that. But I think the main thing, you know what I honestly think would help to lessen that to a great degree, is if simply everyone took the time to read and at least partially understand Sun Tzu's The Art of War.
That's a good book.
Well, because specifically, if you look and you read it, then you can understand how much those tactics are being used as distraction methods, so we argue with one another and don't pay attention. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So I really feel that if people truly looked at that book in that capacity, at least understood it to a partial degree within that it could help that portion. And it's funny because I don't think people would ever look at like how'd you cure racism? We made everybody read The Art of War and
I would have
study it.
stopped you when you said they should read. Period.
And
the thing that I like to do you know what I refer to children as?
Of what?
It's not anything nice.
I'm afraid to ask, Lovern.
You're afraid to ask. I refer to children as the stormtroopers of conformity.
Oh, how come?
Because of how I was picked on through every grade in school because of my difference, and how young kids would look at me and say, "You're different because," and how the group would conform. And so my parents were dirt poor. The first house that we had as a family was a 2-bedroom house, and there was 5 of us kids in there, and it had a pump and an outhouse, and so we didn't have a lot of money. So that if you went to school and you weren't wearing the right clothes, and I'm sure it's the same today, the other kids would go. All the kids that were wearing the Levi's blue jeans, as opposed to a stonewash or a black or whatever, you're on the outside. You're the outsider. And once they've decided you're the outsider, they will stomp you into the ground.
Yeah, I was not on that level. I'm very sorry you went through that. It was definitely like for me but I can see where you're coming from. Like I was the anime kid in the school. Like, oh wow.
Was that
so
a
I
good
get
thing?
no.
Oh.
Back then, no. I think animes definitely has gotten more accepted, but it was definitely like a matter of I was also, very hairy growing up. I was just the fat kid, one of the fat kids in there. So I just got insulted. I was called basically like the N-word because of my skin tone. Surprisingly, yeah, the N-word. Like in a sense, because
Wait, now where was this?
in my school in Colombia.
Oh. All right.
So this is the thing. Basically, there is like the way you call a black person will be una persona negra, but it's just the tone of how you say it. It's basically about the tone, the way how you refer to the person. It can come as either you're a black person or you are the N-word. So definitely I had a bully in school who will basically call me that in the tone of the N-word. And then she thought it would be cute to basically draw herself a swastika on her hand.
Wow.
Yeah. Nobody liked her. Like eventually
and I'm guessing too, another thing against you was, I mean, I only talked to you a little bit in here, but I think you're very intelligent. So I'm guessing you were smart.
No, I had terrible grades.
No? Okay.
I had terrible
No,
grades.
I don't mean that you had good grades. I mean you were smart.
I guess. I think
Because if you're too smart and too aware, that pushes you to the outside too, because then you're a smart ass.
Yeah, maybe. I think definitely I feel like I just definitely become more self-aware as I grew up, because I'm pretty sure I haven't got an official diagnosis, but I'm pretty sure I have autism. Just seeing patterns in my family and just some of the symptoms, so that didn't help. I think just becoming more self-aware and, like I said, just being more aware, like becoming more critical, I think definitely helps as an adult.
Oh yeah, I wish they taught that in school.
Yeah. There's media literacy, but this is the other thing. Something that happens, and I don't know if it's just like how either the environment that I was in or specifically the grade that I was in, it was definitely not to be like, oh my God, but there, I only talk to like I can count with like both my hands the people in my grade that I talk to like regularly, that I have like casual contact or just no contact. Like if they see me, I'll be like, but it was definitely a group of people who care a little bit too much about fitting in. So one of the cute things that my school will do is that the seniors will dress up as clowns or as something like mimes, and then take pictures with the kindergartens just to show like the big age gap, because the school that I went to, had all of the from like pre-K all the way to senior year.
Okay.
No, the people in my grade threw a huge fit. They're like, no, we cannot look like clowns. That's ridiculous. And we all wore like lame white dresses. And the thing is that my mom, having common sense, decided like, okay, I'm gonna get you this white dress that is double layers. So it wasn't see-through because surprisingly, everybody's dresses were see-through. A lot of people were like, oh my God, look at their underwear, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, man.
But then because I was the only one who didn't have any see-through, people were like, are you not wearing any underwear? And I basically had to go in and just kind of flash my leg to prove that I was wearing underwear. It's just like
Again, see how hard they look for the difference.
Oh no, I have this nasty scar, a keloid scar right in my wrist. It happened because I fell off a stone stairs. They gashed my arm really bad. And people were saying like, oh, you're cutting yourself because you're emo.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm like, it was not good. I think after a while, a lot of them calmed down. And it was so weird because I had one of them like had a one-on-one talk with me and he's like, oh, wow, you're very nice to talk to. And I'm like,
yeah,
I just don't fucking like your friends.
I love those moments where it's you get one outside of the group and you're able to talk to them one-on-one. They're like, you don't really seem like what you've been made out to be, and you just kind of want to look at them and be like, duh.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm like hilariously like several. Yeah, that was just like an insane group of people. One of the things that they did, I will admit, was pretty funny.
Okay.
We had this teacher who nobody really liked because he was just kind of a jerk. He was basically like our community service teacher because basically we were like, okay, you have to do community service and stuff. But he was kind of a dick and nobody took him seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Him in class. And I wasn't in that class, but this is basically what I got told. Basically, like the guy was writing on his desk. Somebody threw a dildo at him. The dildo fell in front of him, bounced in the air, and apparently he managed to like grab it and just hide it.
and on
like
that,
vibrator.
and on that, and all of the other wonderful stories that have been in this show, we're gonna wrap it up because I mean the episode that we just dropped here recently with Rob Bellamy and Dr. Stevel had a lot of choking chicken in it. Why not end this one on the note of a dildo getting thrown at a teacher, right?
But it was there were some very funny instances. I think another one, not as insane. It was like we were hearing shuffling and we're like, what is that sound? And an iguana flew in one of my classmates.
Wait, they what?
An iguana fell in one of my classmates. We were like, everybody was hearing like aggressive shuffling and we didn't understand what was that sound. And it was an iguana that fell on one of my classmates. A guy who was apparently this other kid that was 2 grades ahead of me. He was apparently known for being very short. And there was a water tank in the recess area, and he was standing right on the lid. Apparently, and the worst part that I was absent that day, so everybody but me saw it. Apparently, the lid broke, and everybody just heard a thunk, and he was gone. And the people just see like 2 hands reaching out of the hole of the water tank, and people were losing it. When vuvuzelas were a thing, people brought them to class. like okay, I hated high school, but it did have highlight moments. Okay, people were bringing vuvuzelas to class and playing them, and the teachers were getting furious to the point that they had to abandon the school of vuvuzelas because it was so bad.
Wow.
You had to abandon the school.
No, ban vuvuzelas in the school. You remember those like big horns,
Yeah,
like
those
the
noise makers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because and then a teacher will be teaching class, but giving like not looking at the board, and a student will go, "What?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
High school,
god.
you gotta love it, and it's unfortunately something that I don't think it's as a society we could ever. What is up, cat? I didn't know you were on the back of my chair. Uh, Scotty just keeps jumping
So
around.
is from what you were saying before, you got enough to put a show together? Now we're just talking?
Are you kidding? I have way more than enough to put a show together.
Oh,
Lovern,
okay,
that was
good,
a
good.
phenomenal quest. But before we
But
wrap, man, you know, I hate names. I hate the amount of people that I deal with, and then like it's suddenly, and then like I caught it three different ways, and my brain wants to say it three different ways. You know that
yeah.
it's really bad, and Laverne knows this because he's a victim to it, especially how many times he's been on the show. And let me pick up the cat so the dog stops trying to kill it. Right? I mean, not kill it.
My cat is
she,
not here right now.
she's just
I'm
barking.
gonna
But
show him.
Say Scotty's okay. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, what a baby.
It's been an animal. Oh yeah, like I said, like what 3 days
I,
ago.
yeah. I think it was really cool that you're doing some of your stuff in that, but but on the other hand, I'm a little disappointed because I have a story. Do you know who Inanna is?
Inanna, no.
No.
Mm-mm.
It's a very very old, like when I first found it, I learned that it was the it was told to me that it was the first story, and it was a feminist story, and I had been looking at retelling it with Craig Russell and Mike Mignola
Oh, nice.
years ago, but and it was a thing at the time that they had said that if I can sell it to somebody, they would, depending on who was available first. So it might have been inked by Mike over Craig's pencils, or if Mike was available first, then it would be Mike's pencils inked by Craig.
When you said Craig is you mean P. Craig Russell, like
Yes.
draws a lot of Neil Gaiman stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm his colorist.
Nice. Like,
Oh yeah, he does his own beautiful work too.
Oh yeah, his work is gorgeous. I think when it came to like I still need to read like the Sandman series, but I do remember reading like the Dream. What's the Dream Eaters?
Number 50 with the Arabian Nights.
No, the one
No?
with the
Which one?
Japanese story with the kitsune.
The with the fox woman.
Yes, and
yeah,
yes,
yeah, I colored that.
gorgeous comic.
Oh, it
I
was
think
beautiful. Talk about sad though. I was like,
it was so.
I was working
so
on that and crying.
bad.
Yeah.
It was such a what an upsetting. Like I loved it though, but I was so sad that it ended the way it did.
But that was good.
No, it was a wonderful story.
I swear,
Like,
Laverne, I'm gonna find some stuff from you from back in the day that I'm gonna dig it out somewhere, man.
Did you see the Arabian Nights one, Sandman number 50?
No, I will definitely look it up and get it.
It was Craig was putting me through my what's the word? It was a real challenge, but yet so much fun to work on.
He put you through the ringer.
Yes.
No man, Lovern is a. I wish I had my old collection because I can't. I know I'd have several books from you at minimum, Lovern, because I know just from books that you've told me, and I was like, oh, I used to own that. Whatever. Sometimes things happen, but I want to know, man, why you got a problem with Kikyo?
Pardon me?
No, not you, Lovern.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, me. Okay. I definitely, this is for somebody who came watching the anime rather than reading the manga, and it wasn't until recently that several people attest that the manga actually has more nuance with the relationship of like that whole situation of Inuyasha and Kagome.
Uh-huh.
Old jar of moonshine, repurposed.
Sure.
No, I swear. And yeah, imagine me chugging half a jar of moonshine on the podcast and be like, yeah, man, casual, no side effects at all.
I
Well,
mean,
that's a
maybe you
different
can.
podcast.
It's some people can do that. I don't know.
No,
No,
I actually stopped drinking a while back. I'm not like straight edge. I just don't drink as often as I used to. So yeah, I'll die if I drink out that whole jar of moonshine. But so basically my frustration when watching the anime is that she was just a jerk, and for some reason I think this also happened in the manga. I could be wrong. She was basically wanted to kill Naraku by herself, so the bad guy, that she gave him the fucking pearl that they were looking, and makes it basically so powerful that he was able to divide himself into two more people. And I'm just like, why would you do that?
I
Like-
find myself asking that question over a lot of stuff that I'm seeing on streaming services these days.
I don't want to watch the anime again. I think it's one of those that decided to take their own liberties, even if they was following the anime. It's just like annoying. Like there's a reason people meme the anime about saying so much Inuyasha, Kagome, and it's just like, okay, I'd rather read it because I do remember I love Rumiko Takahashi's like work. Like I'm collecting it. If you can see the bottom, that's like Rama and a half. And I eventually wanna get one of the recent ones that she did. My husband actually has Mermaid Saga. And I do want to read more of her stuff because I do remember liking it a lot. But I do want to see how different it is because I feel like I definitely enjoyed reading the manga of Inuyasha more than watching the anime.
Oh yeah.
Even though I was obsessed with it. I like people who went people who I still talk to from middle school can attest how annoying I was with Inuyasha. I was like bad. Now
So
it's
wait.
Baldur's Gate 3.
Did you have, because you watched this in Colombia then, right? Did you have Toonami?
Yeah. Yes, we did
Okay.
have Toonami.
I didn't know if you did as far as it, because that's so
We did have Toonami.
totally. I was watching it at the same time, just so you know.
But what's funny is that for us, Toonami didn't encompass anime, if it did, it encompassed more adult shows or more. It basically Toonami was really our Adult Swim actually.
No.
So I will watch Inuyasha right after school.
Oh, cool.
I will go home, eat my lunch, and watch Inuyasha. And Beyblade. Yeah. And then we didn't have Adult Swim in Colombia, if I recall correctly. I was so wowed by Adult Swim. Toonami was actually our Adult Swim. They will show like Robot Chicken, and I don't recall like any of the other shows. I think the Oblongs was also
Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Space Ghost Case,
Yes.
Coast to Coast, the Bragg Show.
C-Lab 2099.
Yeah, I could sit here and C-Lab 2021. Yeah, I could sit here and go on for a while. I'm a fan.
Yeah, a lot of the Adult Swim shows were basically shown in our Toonami for some reason. And again, this is me going from memory, but I could be wrong. But I could have sworn it was that way.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, no, I was watching Inuyasha after school, and then Yu-Gi-Oh got banned. I basically switched schools during middle school. But Yu-Gi-Oh was banned on my previous school. Beyblade was also banned. Yeah, because it was satanic, and I went to Catholic school, so.
Oh.
Private Catholic schools with the uniform and everything.
Wow.
Actually, surprisingly, private schools are more common in Colombia, and they're and more affordable than your American private school. So, a lot of people were able to go to private school.
Yeah,
Uh,
you don't get that cheap here in America. It's not you gonna yeah, private schools.
yeah.
Yeah, and then we won't talk about. We're not getting into the educational system in this country. We've
Oh
already
no.
talked enough really really screwy and diverse topics within this pod. What you got another? You got another? Go
I'll tell
ahead.
you this much. I'll tell you. Sorry. I'll tell you this much. I took a math class here for college, and it was basically the same stuff I did in high school. So it was like ECA.
Did you just say the classes you took in college here
To get your master's.
were the same as the
My
ones you took?
my regular undergrad.
The ones that
Like the
you took
math.
in.
At least I had to take one math elective, and basically what we were taught was stuff that I was taught in high school.
Yeah.
I'm
Except
done.
the IPA, I
I'm
could
done.
not, and taxes stuff. I could not understand that for the life of me. It's like if you calculate everything by 7 IPA, and how many years are you gonna have? And I'm like, I don't know. And
Yeah,
that does the math on me.
no, I just read an article about it was in a teacher's magazine, and they were disparaging the education system in the United States, and they were basically saying that I think that only 17 states were doing okay.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That's
God.
that's
That's teachers talking to other teachers and disparaging of the state of the education in the United States.
I think it's definitely like I don't know, because I feel like a lot of it is definitely how bad the education is, period. But I also I think a lot about how parents are. Like, I don't know if you guys, I highly doubt you guys are aware, because this is stuff about Sephora, the makeup store. But
no.
basically, there has been a trend, and I actually talked to one of the clerks at the store, that a lot of younger kids are going there just like putting a lot of like makeup, not makeup, but like cleaning products on the face. Like, I am 32, and I was baffled to discover that there's people younger than me that use Botox. I never had the need to use Botox in my life yet. And then apparently a lot of 12, 13-year-olds are doing like beauty products, and this is stuff like will like peel your skin off your face.
Yeah.
In case, and they're putting that, and it's just like parents just allowing this type of like misinformed behavior in a way that I have not seen in like ever. And I do feel like a lot of it is also like parents don't want to parent. Like, I see my sister is a mom of 2, and she takes time to do extracurriculars with her daughters. Everything in the house, as much as she can make it about education, she will make it. She will do like little cards, like she makes sure that it's not only the school that they learn. And I don't see like a lot of parents do that. Like, they just are at the school, and if they tell you like, oh, your child is having like behavioral issue, they're like, well, it's your job to teach them. And I'm like,
So if we could put our cameras that are on looking at us right now into households across the world.
So many iPad kids.
How many?
Like,
Yeah, how many of those pictures would see behind what we have behind us? Books. How many houses do you think have books in them these days?
I think just decorative ones, TBH. Like, like that, like they will have like the big ones just to put as decoration. But I was baffled. I went to see a play yesterday. Not yesterday, 2 days ago, I went to see Annie. My first time ever seen Annie.
Oh yeah.
And it was such a cute play. And there was a kid with an iPad the entire time, just watching Phineas and Ferb.
And his parents allowed that?
Yeah.
Wow.
And don't get me wrong, I get that ADHD is hard, but if you don't even learn to teach your kid to like not train it, but like, hey, learn to find the entertainment in something that is not outside of like a TV program, it's gonna be hard for a lot of kids to focus. I definitely have had to have hard talk with younger kids. I was like, hey, look, I tell you everything that I can tell you, but if you're just gonna be responding to Discord messages all the time, I can't help you. And if your friends are worth their salt as friends, they can wait for your reply. You know?
Yeah.
Like my group chat, my friends, my like childhood like anime. Actually, my friends that were part of my anime group growing up in middle school and high school, who I still talk to.
Well, this is
We
this is
can
definitely
spend a
not.
whole day.
Yeah, this is definitely not the world that Star Trek told me I would be living in when I was this age.
But we still like talk almost every day. But I can survive if I don't look at my group chat for like a day. Even they can go off, and they're not gonna get mad if I don't reply for the day. You know, that just happens. Like sometimes I'm busy, I'm overwhelmed, I'm tired, and I'll just go, just drop a, and they're fine.
I do that sometimes running
When
the
I was
show.
a kid, we had a different kind of group chat. We had something. It was called.
Lovern.
It was
My
called.
friends are in Colombia and Argentina, and one is moving to Australia. How am I supposed to see them in person? Do you want me to fly?
we
Excuse me.
Our telephones when I was a kid were on the same line, so that if you picked up the telephone at any time and say your neighbor 5 miles down the road was on the phone talking to her sister, you could hear them.
Nice.
And if they picked up and they would get on the phone, like, and if somebody was talking but they needed to make a call to the hospital because somebody had an accident, you would get up and you would tell your neighbors to get off the phone because you have to call the hospital. That was
my God.
Yeah, and we had when I was a kid, we didn't have TV until I was a little bit older, and when we had TV, it was 2 channels.
And then with the big
knob,
and then the little tuner at the
And-
bottom.
And not even that.
hysterical. We had 12 channels on the TV, but there was only 2 channels. So.
And then what it was like at 10, 11 o'clock, and channel signed out and we're done for the day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like literally, it was like that was the end.
There was the 10 o'clock news, and then on CBC after that they would have they would broadcast a movie, which for a while was a horror movie, and they were like, they called it the chiller thriller, and so you'd watch some old movie from the 30s, and that, so I got to watch a lot of classic cinema, staying up late and going to bed at midnight.
Nice.
That's
I
always
think
the plus.
for me, I'm trying to think of what else. Like, I mean, in my time, I think my grandma still had like that big TV, but honestly, it made me so scared to even touch it.
Why?
I don't know. I thought it was gonna explode. and then it was, I don't know, man. I would just see it and would be like the entire time. I was like, that's gonna explode. Oh no, turn it off. And my grandma would be like, don't turn it on. And I was like, oh. She just didn't want me to turn it on.
All I know is, in all sincerity, Lovern, I need to eat. I ain't gonna lie, and this is becoming a lot to edit. And I love you all, and this conversation can continue.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
real quick,
I think if you leave us, Lovern and I will be probably talking like 12 hours
and
now.
look,
One more thing.
look, no, I can sit here and enjoy but at the same time, like, the longer this conversation goes, if I'm continuing to record it, because I still technically haven't started, I haven't ended the show yet. I gotta do something to do that properly. You should know that, Lovern. You've been
okay. Do a request.
Well, let's do that. And I wanted to say one thing to Shadia.
Yes.
About Inanna.
Inanna.
I would love to find a woman to illustrate it.
Okay.
And I would like to find somebody who had the background to it. And you have the background for it, because it's a, I've got to remember, it's Middle Eastern. Do you know the I'm not going to remember his name, but the story of Anana is really cool, and I think you might have my email, so you can ask me, contact me, and I can send you the email of it, because I would love to have a woman draw it, because I had a long talk with Trina Robbins at one point, and she said that a woman has to be involved, and she was upset 3 men were going to do the story.
I
I
love
would
when
love to
things.
do it.
Yeah, I
I would
love
love
when
to.
things like this happen on the
The
questionnaire.
one thing that I will tell you is that it might be a moment, because on top of my day job, I have to finish more novels, but otherwise
yeah.
I'd be so interested of at
Well,
least helping
this is
develop this.
beginning of a conversation.
All right. And with that, look, we're going to wrap this up. Right. It's been a pleasure, Shadia. It really has. Right now, what I want y'all to do, bro.
Temper yourself.
All right. So that did not come out like English. Okay. Shadia,
Yes.
right? I'm saying your name right, right?
Shadia. Yes.
Wait.
Almost. Shadia.
Shadia. Shadia. Why does my brain have a Shadia?
You're hungry and tired. That's why. Bestie.
All right, whatever. So look, for everybody out there, right? If you've enjoyed this quiz with Shadia, what I want you all to do, right, is I want you all to go. And I want you to get some fawns, right? Right? And I want you to get them to go over, send her some buttered chicken and a bunch of Dove chocolate or Chocorama.
Yeah. Oh
Haha.
my God.
Look, I got that one right. I can't get your name
Yes,
right, bro. I
but
can't get
okay,
yours or the
chocolate.
first
It's like my
last name.
favorite thing to bring from Colombia and give it out. It's basically so chocoramo is basically like a slice of like yellow cake covered in chocolate. That's all that it is, but it's like a classic snack for like Colombian people.
That sounds delicious, right?
It
So,
is
if you've
delicious.
enjoyed that, hook her up with that. Now, if you haven't enjoyed this particular quest, what I want you to do is send her some false hydras. What's a false hydra? What is a false hydra?
It's a creature in D&D that basically it's kind of works like how you just reacted, where basically if you don't see it, you don't realize it's there until you see it. And if it consumes anybody or anything, it erases it out of existence, like
that's-
memory and everything. Like the person never existed.
That's
Yeah,
terrifying.
it's a great big white glob, and it has I believe it has heads that come out of it.
Yeah, it's like a gigantic white dragon.
Okay,
Yeah, and
so
the heads don't have eyes; they just have holes for eyes.
okay,
I
so
don't recall
for your
that.
sake, in that case, I hope everyone has enjoyed this quest. If you haven't, firstly, I don't know how you made it to the end and why you're here, but whatever. But if you haven't, like I said, send us some false dragons or some false hydras, right? To just tie her down, turn on Thor, love and thunder, and force feed her kidneys.
No! Ew! Oh, I
Right?
hate kidneys.
Right? But I hope you all have, right? If you want to get more
Force feed
information.
her kidneys makes me sound like a fucking cannibal, just so you know.
Hey, well, you said it. What am I gonna do, right? Right. For everybody, check out the links in the description. There's all kinds of information you can find. Besides that, I just want you all to do 3 things. 1, give it that thumbs up. Otherwise, I'm like gonna send knives at you. You hear me? Right here. I will send knives, and he will blow up whatever is around if you don't give this video a thumbs up. Right. Besides that, get your Comic on. Have a good night, y'all.
This has been the questionnaire.
Where's the link?
Thanks for checking out the questionnaire.
In the link below, yes?
I will drop it like it's hot.
That's another party.
It's cool, man. I love it.
The questionnaire. That is all.